Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us this evening. You're listening to Tex Messages Resurrected. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We're glad to be here. Glad to have you joining us. Now, lately we've been having a rather it didn't seem like a major issue at first, but now it's starting to become very deleterious because we've actually been dropping episodes because what happens when we transfer our audio into the VSDC, we get these random sound blips that are very brief, but they're very high intensity. So if you're listening to it, it's one of them things where if you hear it once, then you'll completely tune out of the channel forever. It is very detrimental, and it's intermittent as well. We're not really sure why it happens, but a lot of times we might export from the VSDC to an AVI 2 or 3 times, and it still does that in the intro. Now it may do it in other parts of the video, but we don't listen to the whole thing. So it seems that it's only been doing it in the beginning, but we're not entirely sure on that. So I mean, it's very concerning, and as a result of that concern, we're gonna try to utilize some different editing software. It looks like Kdenlive is probably the most superior one. We just wanted to get one that was open source, you know, GNU license and all that stuff, and that preferably works with Windows and Linux. That way we can go ahead and get into them. So we might still do Cinelera sometime in the future as well, but again, you know, we had some issues this past weekend with vehicles malfunctioning and everything, so we had to postpone some of the plans for a good week or so. Yeah, it looks like Blender, OpenShot, and Shotcut got some pretty decent software as well. So if Kdenlive is insufficient, then we'll try to utilize them. So again, we're just more focused on the hardware side than the content side, which is not necessarily where we want to be. I mean, we want to, yeah, the hardware is always ever evolving. Cameras are always going to get better. Software is going to get better. The computing devices used are going to get better. We're probably going to do some streaming sometime in the future, and then we'll have to figure all that out too. And yeah, I mean, then there's going to be other aspects of the show as well. I mean, that'll involve entirely different ways of filming video and audio, so then we'll have to account for them too. So the reality is, I mean, we're always busy. It's always going to be busy. There's never much of settling to a solid state, where we're just always moving and just trying to keep ahead of the moving train, or the bullet train. So I mean, that's where we're at right now. We're probably gonna tonight we'll probably try to use the VSDC to get this episode on, but most likely we're gonna download Kdenlive and try to at least finagle our way through it. Maybe download the user's manual and read up about it. Just try to figure it out. But most of the times, if you're going to learn something new, it's best just to find out what you absolutely need, the bare minimum, which for us would be green screen, sound, audio, placing video and sound clips in. And that's pretty much it. We don't need to do any sophisticated 3D imaging or anything like that. So that shouldn't be too complicating. But again, it takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes your brain working to a certain capacity. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of the brain, one of the things that the brain needs is oxygen. And what it also needs is to remove carbon dioxide. It also needs a central nervous system for communication. But what we wanted to focus exclusively on tonight is the heart. Now the heart, it's a critically important organ, but it's actually very simple. It's located in your mid-chest here. Sometimes it's slightly off to the left or to the right. Usually it's slightly to the left. So it's about the size of the fist, and it pumps blood throughout the body. Now it pumps the blood through the arteries, which carry the blood away from the heart. And then when it comes back, it's through veins, which carry the blood back. So the blood going away from the heart, see, it goes from body, heart, lungs, heart, body. So when it's pumping blood to the lungs, it's full of carbon dioxide, so the lungs are going to expel them. And then when it's pumping blood back from the lungs, that's the oxygen-rich blood, which then is distributed across the whole body. But first, the body has to take the waste material, send it to the heart, heart sends it to the lungs, lungs sends some blood back, heart sends it back to the body. It's a reoccurring cycle. And over the course of a day, heart weighs about 10 to 12 ounces, and about 6 quarts can be transmitted per day, roughly, depending on the type of individual they are, how large they are, and all that good stuff. So the heart has 4 chambers. There's 2 upper atria, and there's 2 lower ventricles. The sinoatrial node produces the electrical pulse that drives the heart contractions. Now, you've probably heard of different heart conditions. See, a heart attack is actually damage to the heart muscle tissue. There's 3 layers of the heart. You got your inner layer, and then the mid layer is the muscles, and the outer layer is attached with the central nervous system for communication means. So the heart attack, a cardiac arrest is an electrical disturbance of the heart rhythm. For example, if you have a pacemaker, it's setting the pace that your heart beats. It sends those signals to when it should beat. So a lot of times when people do have pacemakers, it's a result of cardiac arrest. And yeah, occasionally sometimes people get heart attack and then they'll get a pacemaker as a result of that. But usually that's just the damage, that I shouldn't say is just. The heart attack is damage to the muscle tissue. And the heart, since the heart always constantly works, it doesn't really regenerate like the liver, or even to some degree the kidneys, which is why it's critically important to be heart healthy. So getting back to the heart functionality though, it has a pulmonary and a system circuit. The pulmonary circuit, it has the deoxygenated blood which leaves the right ventricle of the heart via the artery, and then it travels to the lungs and returns as oxygenated blood to the left atrium via the vein. So the artery leaving the heart, vein coming back. And the systemic is the one where oxygenated blood leaves the left ventricle to the aorta, through the aorta, and from there enters arteries and capillaries where body's tissues are supplied with oxygen. So that's the systemic. So you may have heard of a pulmonary embolism, where, for example, if people get some type of bubbling in their lungs, which constricts the blood flow. So that's the system where the heart interfaces with the lungs. And then the systemic circuit is where the heart interfaces with all the body tissues. They're both pretty important, to be 100% honest. So some of the ways that you can keep your heart healthy and ways to improve blood circulation. Now, yeah, there's a lot of ways that are just common sense. Exercise, good nutrition, and all that. But some ways in particular, to eat fruit containing vitamin C. Vitamin C helps to not really thin the blood, but it just helps to create a better lubricant for it. Sort of like omega-3 fish oil works that same way too. It reduces the viscosity of the blood so it can flow more smoothly. Now it's basically, if you went from 10W30 motor oil to 0W20 motor oil, something along those lines. And lycopene, fruit containing lycopene, is always very beneficial to being heart healthy. Eating nuts that contain L-arginine, which is walnuts, pecans, peanuts, all that, almonds. Basically any tree nuts that aren't doused with herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, and insecticides are going to be good for you and for your heart. You can't recommend them enough. Loose fitting clothing, that's definitely one of them. You may have heard back in the good old days, if you ever wore a Speedo, everyone said, oh, that'll create infertility because it cuts off circulation to specific parts of your body. There could be an element of truth to that as well. Most of the times, males generally don't wear very tight-fitting clothing. See, wearing tight-fitting clothing seems like it's a supplement towards lack of muscle mass, because if you have plenty of muscle mass, your body is held together pretty good. But if you feel you need to wear the tight-fitting clothing to hold your body together, then it's probably a lack of muscle mass. Oh yeah, most females wear tight-fitting clothing because it's better looking. I'll be the first person to congratulate the inventor of the yoga pants, I'm sure, if I ever came across them. So it's certainly nothing to complain about. But according to our research here, loose-fitting clothing is more beneficial to the heart. So that is to blood circulation in general. So that is one thing to concern yourselves with. Staying warm as well. See, what happens when you get really cold, your veins and your arteries and your capillaries start to recede within your body, start to secede. And then they're not on the surface anymore because they need that warmth. They need to hide behind the fat so that they're closer to the inner parts of your body to stay warm. And that happens with swimming a lot too. When you hop in the water in a pond or a lake, it's very cold. So then your veins just suck cells into your body, and then they get really small and everything too. So it cuts off on your circulation a lot. Frostbite is essentially when you lose circulation of those parts of your body and blood is no longer that tissue is no longer supported by blood. So then you got some massive problems. And typically, frostbite can absolutely happen in the deep north here. Looks like tonight's going to be about -10 Fahrenheit. So if you're outside with exposed skin for a few minutes, yeah, you probably would get frostbite, which is something that nobody desires. And then, we got the no-brainers here: exercise, quitting smoking, drinking plenty of clean water with the magnesium, the phosphorus, the iron, the calcium, the potassium, the sodium. Green tea, dark chocolate. Those are, when we say dark chocolate, one of the recommendations there is if you go to the cooking section of any grocery store, you will find 100% dark chocolate bars. Not 85 or 70% or 33%, then filled with a bunch of milk and sugars and fillers and colorings and all that junk. Just pure 100% dark chocolate. Stick it in your mouth, it'll melt. It's really fun to consume it that way, actually. Then you can enjoy it for a good 10 minutes. So one of the other things that was strangely beneficial towards circulation was rebounding exercises. Like, for example, jumping on a trampoline. Just having that up and down motions. I mean, yeah, it pulsates your blood and it perhaps maybe makes it move in directions your body doesn't desire. But still, it's just something different as long as you're not doing it all the time. Same with the inversion table. See, a lot of times when people first use the inversion table, they're not used to having all that blood rush to their head. But I mean, it is beneficial to just do that every once in a while. Plus, it decompresses your spine and your kneecaps and other parts of your body as well, your neck. So inversion tables, trampolines, great for circulation, so long as they're not overdone. You don't want to sleep on an inversion table or spend hours on it at a time. Then you might have some pretty big issues. And of course, last but least, try to avoid alcohol. When you get alcohol in your blood, then it supplants other healthy nutrients. And when people measure your blood alcohol content, that's basically what it is. So when you supplant good nutrients with complete garbage, then you're gonna have some problems. Now, yeah, alcohol in a very small sampling size could eradicate maybe some toxins or bacteria that may have gotten in your blood somehow, some way. But yeah, I don't know about a lot of that science. I mean, maybe it's just some wine companies that are paying off these researchers. But in any event, ladies and gentlemen, if you want a healthy heart, exercise, try to stay fairly warm, eat healthy foods, vitamin C, nuts, drink plenty of water, green tea, dark chocolate, exercise again, alcohol, don't drink alcohol. So it's pretty straightforward. Nothing too complex. I mean, that seems to be the general theme with most parts of the body. They just want more water or want plenty of water and good food without all the toxins and pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and that things of that nature. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna have to call it good for this evening. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. We certainly enjoy having you join